wait
Yes.
for Gary?
I mean, we could
Let's get
start.
started.
Did you want to start with Scott's, move him up to the, before the senior multifamily?
That's what I was thinking. And
Yeah.
then
Okay.
Scott can go on and do other things this evening instead of
That sounds like a good
listening to
idea.
us. Okay, so I think everybody knows Scott. Scott lives here in town. He's also the president, CEO of the St. Charles County Economic Development Center. Scott's meeting with all the city elected officials to talk about what they're doing at the EDC. I think, Scott, you're going to talk about what kind of accomplishments you've done over the last, did you start in December or January?
It was January of this year.
Okay, so.
And what a wonderful year it's been.
What a year, right?
A year to remember.
Yes.
Scott started and everything else started. So Scott, we're just going to turn it over to you, and then perhaps we have some questions. And I can talk a little bit about the contract that we have with the EDC that begins January 1st. So it's all yours, Scott.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you all for the opportunity to be a part of this tonight. Can everybody hear what I'm saying? Do I need to adjust volume or anything?
No.
Okay.
You're good. Thanks.
Well, our family has been pleased to be homeowners in Lake St. Louis since 2006. And actually, we lived in Cedar Lake Apartments for a number of years. And that's when we kind of fell in love with the community and then eventually had a chance to buy a house. Actually, this is my second tour of duty at the EDC. I date all the way back to the city of St. Peters. I think Gary Turner had just kind of completed some of his work that way. But that was back in the 80s and Ronald Reagan was still president.
Okay.
But I started with the EDC initially in 2004 and was there for about 11 plus years. Then the county executive appointed me to be the director of workforce and business development for the county, did that almost 5 years, and then was pleased and honored to have the opportunity to come back and help work at the EDC again. But during that period, I know the mayor had me sit on your strategic planning committee. So that was a treat as well, having a part of that. So hopefully I'm a favored son of the Lake St. Louis. I voted every election. And if I understood right, I have the ability to share my screen. I'm going to show you some slides if I could. And for some of you, this might be a reminder of what you already know. For others, it may be brand new. But I'll take you through some slides and then kind of end with some economic development news. And then I would be more than happy to answer any questions. And again, just want to thank the city for this opportunity and for our long-term partnership. For those who don't remember or don't know, the EDC dates all the way back to 1990. And this is a photo from the original ribbon cutting at the building in 93. And at that point, you can see Governor Carnahan and Mayor Tom Brown and some others who aren't with us or currently maybe not in their current positions that they were at that point. But the EDC has been around since 1990. We started out initially as the Industrial Development Authority and Crossroads Financing Group coming together. Then 3 years later, we were able to build the incubator. What had happened at that point, some federal dollars were available because the A-12 program had been slashed. And so there was training and business support funding out there. We built this, opened it in 93. And then if you also remember a history lesson, something kind of catastrophic happened in the Midwest in 93. We had a major flood. And so within the first year of opening, there was more funding available and we went to 60,000 square feet. And so the facility's been chugging along ever since. Basically, our mission is to be a catalyst for growth. That's to help businesses, help institutions, organizations, and individuals in the community. So basically, we like to think of ourselves as being here to help grow business and help grow lives. And we do all that in partnership with cities like Lake St. Louis and the other major cities in the area and the county and whatnot. Here are our 6 key core services at the EDC. The first is business attraction, retention, and expansion. The other is business financing and business incubation, obviously dating back to our historic roots. We also do business counseling and training. We house what's called the SBDC at our facility, and that's a partnership between the US SBA and the University of Missouri. And so we've got one of the rock stars who's a business counselor here in the region. Lots of folks look up to him. His name is Justin. And if you're ever meeting with any constituents that are trying to figure out whether they want to start a business or need help with their business, we'd love to have them get in touch with him. And that's my nice old dog having a little phlegm attack in the background. So sorry. I might have given him COVID too. Maybe I need to put the mask on. I'm not sure. We also do community marketing and public policy efforts as well. There are specific targeted clusters that we're going after because of the growth that's in the entire county. And that includes advanced manufacturing, transportation, logistics, distribution, financial services, information technology, healthcare. And then although it's not a federally recognized cluster or business, we do have a lot of emphasis on entrepreneurship that crosses all of these sectors and many others, simply again because of our counseling, because of our incubator, and because of our 504 services. There's a roadmap that we've been following. Paul might have mentioned this a few times in the past, but the EDC board back in 2018 hired an outside group called Marks Nelson, and they put together a strategic action plan. And so that has been the roadmap, apart from trying to learn to survive during COVID-19, that was given to me as my marching orders to help rebuild some of the organization because we had sort of lost our way in the last few years. So that stuff is very much underway in regards to branding and marketing and lead generation and project management and taking a lead role for the group out in this area. We've got shared goals though, whether I talk with Lake St. Louis or Weldon Spring or county government or whoever. The goal is we're trying to grow the tax base. We're trying to grow business investment, and we're trying to grow job creation and good jobs, good well-paying jobs in the area. Because we all need the taxes to pay for the services that our residents and businesses want, the roads, the streets, the parks, the public safety. We have to have good business investment so companies make profit or they won't be here. And lastly, we want good jobs for our residents and for my kids, your kids, the grandkids, the neighbors. So that involves wages and training and a whole bunch of other things. On business attraction, let me just kind of talk about some of the different things that have been going on. The last few years, the EDC had not really been taking the lead to manage leads in our area when it came to business opportunities from the actions of the EDC or from leads that came to us from other groups like the Alliance STL or the Missouri Partnership. That was one of the first things that the board of directors asked me to fix, and we now have a partnership agreement in place with the cities on how lead management will occur. And this year we've already serviced 54 leads, which stacks up pretty well given the COVID that we've been in. The bulk of those have been manufacturing of many sizes. A lot of it has been site selection assistance. That's where a lead is there and they have specific needs, and then we try to connect them to the appropriate property, real estate, and other incentives and arrange tours when possible. But we're actively involved in trying to bring some new land to market, including some land that George has been talking to me with as we try to figure out some high-tech possibilities even in Lake St. Louis. And then despite what's been going on, I'm pleased to say we did have one actual lead that we generated, and it actually turned into a project. It happened quite quickly, quicker than normal. It's called Project CAN. It's going to be announced this Wednesday when Governor Parson comes to town and congratulates that company and recognizes them. Unfortunately, because of COVID-19, I'll be unable to be there to help be a part of that celebration. But working with groups like the Alliance and the Partnership that have 3 or 4 times our staff and 3 or 4 times our budget, they have been unable to land any projects this year in St. Charles County, but the EDC did. An $8 million project, 25 new jobs, 118% of county average wage. County average wage right now is approximately $49,000. So these are jobs paying in the 50s. And they may end up being jobs that residents of St. Charles County, residents of Lake St. Louis actually work with. But meanwhile, on the 504 side, we are working on 3 loans right now in Lake St. Louis. One of them will have some paperwork signed tomorrow, I'm understanding. But all of these are set to be dispersed next year. And of course, you always have to wait and see what happens. One of them is a gym, and so gyms are having a tough time of it. But these are 3 specific jobs with over $3.2 million of total project investment that are coming to Lake St. Louis through the offices of the EDC and our small business loan program. And they're on the bottom of the slide, if you can see that. Looking back over the last 5 years, we've had 33 projects throughout all of St. Charles County, over $58 million of total investment, and almost 520 jobs. I'd love to tell each of our governmental partners, including my hometown, Lake St. Louis, that every year we're going to have a new business come to town. Every year there's going to be 10 or 20 or 50 new jobs and $1 million or $2 or $3 million of investment. Unfortunately, it doesn't always land in each community all the time. So it rotates around the area based on opportunities. But the one thing that's true, whether it lands in Lake St. Louis or Weldon Spring or O'Fallon or wherever it is These are jobs that our people, our folks apply for and have. These are places that our residents go to and appreciate the support services that are there, whether they're looking for carpeting or trying to get fit or going to learn self-defense and jujitsu and things like Gracie Barra have. So when these projects come to town, sometimes they're in Lake St. Louis, sometimes in other places, but they serve the entire community, and they're there for the entire community to enjoy and work at and be a part of. Meanwhile, on the incubator side of things, our 2020 results, again, impressive, I think, given COVID. 2 business grads, 2 business expansions, 2 new tenants, and almost 160 jobs based out of the EDC. We have not had any companies close because of COVID-19 in 2020. They have all learned to pivot and thrive and succeed, even if they've had to change their service delivery, even if they've had to change their business model. Some have even actually changed what their products are because of the new demand that's there. Our wine slushy company went into hand sanitizer production instead and is making more money in hand sanitizer than he ever did in wine slushies. But dating back to 1990 and 93, when the incubator started, you can see that we've had a huge impact in the community. 233 business graduations from the incubator, almost 1,000 jobs at time of graduation, and that has nearly doubled to over 1,784 current jobs in the community from those businesses from our incubator. Meanwhile, on some of the current things that we're doing right now, we've been working with each of the communities and for Lake St. Louis closely with George to identify properties that need to be featured. And then we boost and sponsor these through advertising online around the Midwest, around the St. Louis area, but especially outside the Missouri area. So these are 2 examples of properties that George says, these are the ones you wanted us to focus on. And we do it 1 week at a time on our website and on our social media platforms. And sometimes this is getting out to 16 or even 20,000 people. So we're hoping that at some point it's going to generate some phone calls and some interest and lead to either new tenants or people moving into some of these opportunities that are here. Plans for 2021, we've been building out our team. We just added a new director of communications and marketing. She started 2 weeks ago. We have not had that position filled for over 3 years at the EDC. And so I'm glad to have someone there to do that. It was something I was having to do in spare time. So instead of 70 hours a week, I'm hoping to cut it down to about 60. But we've been trying to get the job done. We're building out what we're doing for lead management. And it looks like in the reports that we have from our peers, at least the first half of 2021 is still going to be virtual. So most of the trade shows and mission trips and other things have been turned into virtual events. And so we've all been learning to pivot. But meanwhile, there's been a lot more work that's being done on web and data-driven approach. It's not just mail out 16,000 flyers. It's actually look up 16 key people online and reach out to them because they're the tipping point people. And so we've been doing that along with doing more targeted market segmentation and then working with Paul Markworth and the other administrators to figure out how can we stabilize the funding that we have for the EDC and drive that towards attraction efforts. Here's a quick little chart that shows you some of the history over a period of time on how economic development attraction was funded to the EDC from our contracts with our local governments. It hit a high point back in the year 2000 and has been decreasing since that time. And originally the business attraction was done by a county employee that was housed at the EDC, and we had a cost share with them. But that all changed about 15 years ago, and that entire function has been given to us ever since. But unfortunately, the revenues have gone down at the same time. So I wanted to show you real quickly just our EDC pie chart. We've worked very diligently over the last 30 years to not necessarily have to rely on governmental funding. So 43%, that big blue box, big blue chunk, sorry, comes from our 504 revenues. The orange, the 33%, comes from our incubator fees. And then governmental support is less than 10% of our EDC budget. So we appreciate it, we need it, we use it well, we use it judiciously, but we are not a governmentally funded organization to the tune of $4 million like our other organizational peers are, like the Alliance or the Missouri Partnership or the St. Louis Economic Partnership. The key thing that I wanted to point out, and here's a picture from wonderful Lewis and Clark over there, is that governments have been leading the way in St. Charles County ever since the Louisiana Purchase. We're here because government took action and led the way and made it possible. The interesting thing is that we do generate revenues from our events. We do generate revenues from our loans. We do generate revenues from our incubator. but there is no revenue generated by attracting business to town because we're not brokers. We don't get a commission off the real estate lease or sale. We're not lawyers. We don't get a percentage of the incentive if anything is added. And so as governments have asked us more and more and more to take the lead on attraction, we're willing and able to do that and growing in doing that, but also pointing out that it is not a revenue generator. And so that's why it's been important for us to try to get stabilization for the governmental support for those activities. With that said, I basically want to say to the city of Lake St. Louis, not only that I love you because it's my hometown, but I appreciate and love the long-term partnership the city's had with the EDC. And we hope that you guys will want to continue to have a seat at the regional table, participate in setting the agenda for how we brand and promote the community, collaborate in how we do pursue high tech, high growth opportunities based on what you want in Lake St. Louis, not what the developer is demanding, and being a part of all of the efforts to help grow the tax base, grow job creation, and the community services that the entire area, including Lake St. Louis, enjoy. With that, I want to just kind of end you with a few highlights of some economic news around the area, if I have just a few more moments, Mayor. Number one, if you haven't seen it on our social media or our efforts to get it out in the media, we are setting a 4-year record in St. Charles County, despite COVID, despite the economy, despite the challenges of the political year. We're building more single family homes this year than we did the last 4 years. And I think that's incredible and shows the resilience and the opportunities that are here in St. Charles County. Here you can see the breakout by community from January through September, and we're waiting on the October numbers. They should be out relatively soon. But you can see that Lake St. Louis is in the top 4 for single family housing starts this year. So kudos there. And obviously at this moment, we're seeing lots of other activity in other places where golf courses have been turned into residential areas, or parks, or long-held family farms have suddenly come to market. Meanwhile, it's a pleasure to be able to say that our unemployment rate has fallen to pre-pandemic levels in St. Charles County. We were at 3.4% for September when the US was at 7.9%. And historically, for the last 30 years, except one time when there was a GM strike years ago, we have always had a lower than average unemployment rate for the rest of the region, for the rest of the state, and for the rest of the country. And so this past month, as the numbers came out on the national level, it dropped down to 6.6 for October. We're still waiting for the stats that come out for the communities and the counties. But I guarantee for you that if the US fell to 6.6 for October, that St. Charles County is now down to 3% or below. And so you can put it in context. Here it is for the entire year. We were at 3.8 in January. It dipped down to slightly below 3% in February. And then you can see the impact that the virus had in our area while there was the lockdown and the shutdowns. And so many of our neighbors or friends were impacted if they especially had restaurants or retail operations, but other things as well. And so we have done a great job as a community to get down to this level. There's still pain out there. There's still jobs that need to be filled and still jobs that need to be created. But this shows that our workforce in St. Charles County, whether they live in Lake St. Louis or Weldon Spring or O'Fallon, these are the most sought after, highly skilled workers in the entire metropolitan area. And so with that said, I want to appreciate again the opportunity to chat with you all, show you some info. But this is a partnership. Economic development is a team sport. It's not just one person or one community or one organization, but it's all of us working together to promote opportunities for growth and for strengthening what is here in St. Charles County to make it a great place to grow your business and your life, whether you've been a resident for 16 years or 60 years, or whether we're talking about a 16-month-old or a 16-year-old getting ready to go into the workforce. With that said, I'd be happy to try to answer any questions.
Well, thanks a lot, Scott. I appreciate you coming here to us. And I know when I first became mayor, I think this was probably right before you left to go to the county, you were kind of instrumental in, I know it didn't happen, but other things, there were other issues in that. With the Children's Museum, I know you were really marketing our area, and at the time, it was really looking good, and unfortunately, they just couldn't get the funding for what they planned. So I do know that, you know, you've been out there, and I'm really happy you're back. I think everybody's really happy you're back, and promoting our area and the EDC kind of getting back on track where it was before. So do appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate the vote of confidence from you there, Mayor, and for Paul and the other folks that did vote to have me come back to assist in this way. So it is a pleasure. It's a labor of love, and it's built on we're standing on the shoulders of giants, people like Gary, and I don't say that just to be flippant, but Val Hull and Daryl Rogner and so many other names that would be in that hall of fame that we could talk about. And so the work that was done in the 70s and 80s and 90s to get us where we are today, whether we're talking about interstates or pipelines or annexation agreements or so many other things, have just been great soil for us to work in. And I want to help over the next 10 years to make it as the best that it can be for the next generation that'll go on from here.
Good to have you back, Scott.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Scott.
Good to see you, sir.
Yeah, and Scott, I know you aren't feeling well tonight, so we really do appreciate you taking time, probably off the couch, laying horizontal, trying to feel better, to meet with us. So thanks for getting on the line here.
Paul's going to have to tell you, I caught the disease going to a city administrator meeting that he's been good enough to zoom in on, but I went and sat next to somebody who was positive and didn't know it. And so here we are.
And Scott, you know who sat on the other side of that guy?
Yeah, but he didn't talk to him much. He talked to me, but yeah.
Yeah. You could kind of see him glow.
Yeah. I got you.
I'm kidding. But we do have a budget adjustment on the meeting tonight. And then for the board, we'll be getting, or I'm actually going to be signing a contract and getting that back to Scott. The contract is our EDC contract. It starts January 1st and it runs through the calendar year. So we'll be getting that over to you real soon, Scott.
I appreciate that. And we're going to do everything we can to do whatever the city of Lake St. Louis wants us to do to promote and strengthen the community.
Okay. Get well. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to sign off. Have a good rest of the evening. You all stay well, wear your masks, and have a happy Thanksgiving.
You too.
Thanks.
You do too.
Okay, let's jump back up to the first item, which is the senior multifamily apartment in the BP zoning district, soon to be the OC zoning district. We really start talking about this and then we never can finish it up. So let's see if we can finish it up tonight. I've had an opportunity to talk to everybody. After speaking with Lewis, I think that it makes sense for us to remove that permitted use for BP and soon to be OC throughout all property that is zoned BP, soon to be OC. Instead of just carving out an area in the business park as a special use or conditional use, or an overlay district, excuse me, it'd be an overlay district. Rather than do that, we think it makes sense just to remove that permitted use entirely in that district, and want to see what everybody else thinks about that.
But if you can hear me, I agree with that.
We can hear you.
We can hear you. Yes.
I'm okay with that. I think that's a great idea.
And as Lewis had said, that there still is quite a few areas where apartments can be built. And I appreciate the effort that Lewis has done to come up with this solution, because I think everybody should be comfortable with where we're going.
Okay,
I'm good.
sounds good.
Karen, you have any comments?
Nope.
Okay. And then there's one other thing that I want to talk about. I did mention it to Lewis. He suggested one thing that I think makes all sense in the world. So we've gone through this process, and it's been a long time, a couple of years, talking about where apartments could be located. I know there's concern among the board about having apartments a lot more of them built in our community. And after meeting with the apartment developer at the Meadows, you know, it occurred to me that I think we're going to see that project happen, and there could be another one there at the Meadows. And, you know, there's still plenty of land over there. So I think it makes a lot of sense to have a high density area such as around the Meadows, be apartments, and, you know, and want to see that happen. The other area that we talked about for apartment construction would be at the Uptown district near the dam. There's 150 apartments that could be built there. Frankly, I don't see that happening anytime soon, if ever. And that reason is because 150 units, with that cost of land, the price to buy the land, acquire land, tear down the buildings and put in 150 units, I don't think that's going to be economically viable for any developer. I could be wrong, but I just don't think that's going to happen, at least in the next, 10, 20 years. So either, we're going to have to increase that if we get somebody who's really interested, increase that more than 150, and that's going to take some political will to do that. Or we just won't see apartments over there, and probably that area will continue to stay as is. And then the third area of town that I thought made a lot of sense after talking to Lewis, to have apartments where we're 18 units or so per acre, is on the Archdiocese property. It's 60 acres, approximately 60 acres. And then Muke owns some land there too. It's all on the south side of Hawk Ridge Trail. We've talked to a couple people who want to build high density, including apartments. They had backloaded alley, attached housing along with apartments, and on that 60 acres. And I can see that happening, and that I think that fits well, and it's in conformance with our comprehensive plan. The remainder of the land that we've been talking about, apartments, could be along Technology Drive. And there's a couple other areas, I believe, in town. If we're concerned about having a lot of high density apartments, perhaps we ought to consider lowering the density in those locations to maybe 7 units per acre. That kind of density would result in townhomes, attached villas, the type of product that you see on Prospect Road. I think everybody thinks that's a nice product. There's some similar buildings being constructed on Technology Drive and next to near Hinkie Road. That a lower density project like that, I think, maybe fit our community a little bit better. And so keep the high density near the Meadows, keep the high density down by Saratoga, south of Hawk Ridge Trail. Maybe something happens at the dam, probably not. And then after that, all the other land would be, 7 units or 6 units, 7 units. We'll talk to Lewis, figure out what it could be, and then adjust our development code to reflect that. So it'd be a change in direction than where we've been going for the last, 6 months talking about this. But if there is a concern about having too many apartments, that's my view. That's the way to handle that. And I want to hear what you guys think.
When we started talking about apartments and not talking about multifamily, but apartments, and the moratorium was a good idea. But my objection from the beginning was everybody was saying, well, we don't need apartments. And I've always said we need apartments, but in the right areas. So if we carve out those areas as a board, and then won't be so many arguments or or anything like that. If we knew where these apartments were going to go, I think that would simplify and solidify where we can have these things, because there is a need for it in certain parts of the city.
I like the approach, Paul.
Yeah.
I have no problem with it, but what does two guys on P and Z think? Tom?
Good idea.
Mike, I don't have a problem with having selected carved out areas. I guess we need to look at where they are. You know, I worry about having apartments close to the meadows that aren't similar in design and you know, I guess price point. You know, I really worry about having lower priced apartments come into town, is my big concern.
According to what Paul told me, the Meadows ones are pretty high class.
Yeah, and it's not in the meadows itself.
I know, but the ones
Well,
near.
that's, yeah, and that's, I agree, Mike. I don't have a problem with the ones in the meadows currently. I'm just worried if we let somebody else come near the meadows, I want it to be similar in design and price.
I think we're all agreed with that.
Hmm.
Karen, what do you think of that?
I think we still need a multitude of different types of housing, you know, even I agree with Tom on that location over there by the meadows, but I still think we need a variety of housing out here, and even apartments. There is a need for that. I can tell you right now, there's a big need. So we just have to be careful, like you said, carve out the place, put them. I'm fine with that. I just don't want to see us not allowing them because we don't like them. You know what I mean? So.
That's right.
Paul, what's the current occupancy of the apartments? Do we know at the Meadows?
When we were meeting with the other developer, he was telling us he thought they were in the mid 60s now. I drive through there and there are a lot more cars. So they are starting to lease up.
Mid-60s, you said?
Yeah, that's what the guy told me, mid 60s.
They're doing good.
And that's prices. Yep.
Just look at the parking lot and you can see more and more cars all the time.
Yeah. The developer we're talking to has done a study. You know, if somebody's willing to put up $20 million, $30 million, they better know what they're doing and have a good sense of, you know, the market out there. And he said there's a need for it. Like Karen said, there's a need for it.
It's huge. I mean, right now, if people want to buy a house, they have to overpay for it. And I think I think it's going to be an issue down the road because of this. I think things are getting overvalued. We've created an artificial market, but right now people cannot buy a house. So they have to go somewhere. And I think rentals are going to be a big thing here for the next year or so. And even maybe with COVID and people losing their jobs, you know, or losing their homes, they got to go somewhere.
Yeah, but Karen, I think the interest rates have driven a lot of those.
Oh, it has.
I
Oh,
mean,
I agree. Yes.
yeah, I mean, who wouldn't want to borrow money at 2.15 or whatever it is?
Oh, I agree with you. I mean, it's like they're rabid out there trying to buy a house. I
Yeah,
mean,
I know.
I had one buyer already, 18 contracts we lost because we didn't overpay. We didn't go over price. So, I mean, it's just nuts.
There's going to be a correction soon.
And that's what I'm afraid of, because even now I'm hearing that, you know, we're overvaluing these houses like we did years ago. And now I'm hearing that appraisers are even coming out and just doing drive-by appraisals. They're not even stopping and looking, which is actually, they're supposed to get out and view the property and measure and all that stuff, but they're not even doing that. So I'm just a little concerned about what's going to happen down the road when you get these people that overpaid for a house. I mean, I saw one in O'Fallon that was 180,000 with a 1-car garage, 1,400 square foot, and it sold for 215. And the asking price was 180. So
Wow.
it's just, I mean, is that house going to be worth that here in another year or two? I don't think so.
I don't either.
Wow.
Well, it took 10 years for our house appraisal recover from 2008.
Yep. Top of the market was 2006. There's been a great recovery, but I just can't see how it's going to be sustainable.
Yeah.
If they keep loaning money for it, it'll be sustainable.
Yeah, well,
Not to worry.
And Paul, I do like the idea of, with some places where we have more of that townhome look. Not everywhere needs to be, the high density apartments. Like you mentioned, that little area on Prospect, those do look nice. And then what they're doing in Creekside Landing is more of a townhome rather than several apartments. In fact, the townhomes, some of them are right across the street from homes, and people are building homes. So apparently, brand new homes, people aren't worried about building a home across the street from some townhomes.
Do we want to get to the
Just
code
throwing that out
enforcement before we run out of time?
Yeah, how about, I was just going to wrap this up. How about I work with Lewis this week. We may have to fine tune some of the code that's already been written. I'll talk to Lewis about that, and then we'll send out the edits to you guys.
Good.
fine
Make
with
sure
that.
Thanks.
planning commission,
Thanks,
this all has to go back through the planning commission too.
So you
And
do-
thanks, I see Rhonda, Ken, and who else was on here?
And Gator,
Yes. Appreciate you guys, Tom, calling in and taking part in this. I know for some people it's a little bit more difficult because it is not a typical night for planning and zoning, but appreciate you guys being involved in your input. Thanks. And thanks a lot, Lewis, for everything you've done here. I know sometimes it's like, we say one thing and then we change our mind. So it's not always the easiest.
Good job, Lewis.
yep. Got to keep Lewis guessing.
Paul, you just said that this has to go back to P and Z, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we've actually scheduled the public hearings for the adoption of the
Right.
development code and zoning map. So that'll be heard at the next P and Z meeting, December 3rd, and then the December 21st meeting of the Board of Aldermen. But we'll make those revisions beforehand.
Okay. Good. Okay, great.
Thanks, Lewis. So before we run out of time, let's talk about code enforcement. In the packet, you have a letter from Lewis. It was dated back in late March, I believe. It explained some of the code enforcement issues that we come across that we heard you say that we should relax during this period of COVID. And we just want to check with everybody and see, do we want to get back to where we're enforcing some of those code problems, or do we want to continue as we have since March and not pursue them? What do you guys think?
Well, COVID is not going
Lost you, John.
away anytime soon.
Freezing.
Go ahead, John. We can hear you.
You hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, keep doing what we're doing, don't enforce these things that might cost more than people are willing or able to spend right now. Once this, two places have said the vaccine is coming, so let's keep doing that. Give people a chance, with high dollar fixes. Keep doing what we're doing, but I would say we keep an active list so that when it happens, we contact them and say, okay, it's time to fix what you need to fix. And the other things, things like, it's been negative, anybody that's negatively affected by COVID, give them an opportunity, if we can, we'll listen to them and see if we can give them some time.
I don't want COVID to be used as an excuse to do something that they can do. That's my point. And I think at this point, we should go ahead and check on these deficiencies. And then if the people think they still have a problem, they can appeal hardship. Why don't we do it that way?
Well, that's what I was kind of saying, yeah. We
Okay, I'm sorry, John, I didn't understand that.
If we can listen to them, and, if they're negatively affected in some manner, we can talk it over and discuss it.
And I know it's not our job to do this, and I spoke to Paul about this. Why can't we maybe identify some groups that would come out and help some of these people if they truly have a need? There's got to be groups of people out there that would come out and help somebody paint or clean their siding or something. I mean, I'm sure there's, like I said, I know there's got to be groups.
I don't know. They tried that a few years ago with that group that Joe
Not
Snell
that
had,
group.
a few others.
Okay.
No, but the problem was they had more, there were more homes than they could ever do. And then the
Right.
people get older, and that's the thing. And I think it's something every city runs into, that, yeah, it sounds great. And, we need people to come this day and paint, and just, people will do it for a while, but, as your population gets older, there probably are a number of people. And some of them, I kind of wondered why, because they talked about their family, why none of their family bothered to help out there.
Yeah, and Karen, it's with those volunteer groups, it's really tough to manage. It's almost harder to manage the volunteer groups than it is to get it accomplished.
Yeah. I know
it can
there's
be
places
difficult.
out there.
And most
I
of
mean,
the
Not the group we had. but
most of the volunteers Kathy was talking about are labor type. They can go over and help, but we're talking people can't afford sometimes.
Right.
That's the issue.
And like I said, I'm sure it's not really our position, but it would be kind of nice if we could find some. I have a friend that they did a lot of work in St. Charles. Like I said, I could find out what organization that was, but they had a board, they raised money, they did, went and helped people that had a need. Seems to me that.
And the one thing I think we ran into before was some of these, if they're an official group, they'll have like an income criteria, and
Yeah.
most people out here, even a lot of the retirees, don't fit that really, really low income criteria where, they would do it. But I mean, it's, if somebody knows of somebody out, we're always,
Yeah.
I found somebody, there was a home, this was years ago that oh gosh, it looked terrible. And I don't know how they found somebody. I bought the paint if somebody would paint it, and it was actually the next door neighbor was so happy. They jumped at the chance to paint it. I mean, you don't run into that too often, but they hated looking at the house.
You know what? I will check with a friend of mine who did that over in St. Charles and see what they have going on. But, I think at some point in time, we're going to have to get these things under control, kind of like maintaining your car. If you don't take care of your car, it's going to get worse and it's going to get more expensive. So, at some point in time, people are going to have to start fixing their homes. And I agree with Gary Turner that we can't use COVID as an excuse, but maybe we can use that to help these people.
Oh, that's the reason we started this in the first place.
Yep. And I agree with you on that too, John.
But like I was trying to say, it is after a certain amount of time, then we got to call them on it and make them get it done.
So where do we leave that with Paul? Do we think we should start doing it again, or?
No, keep things as I'm saying, keep things the way they are.
Me too. Me too.
Now, now this is a question, and John, I know you were on some of these emails where there was a resident and they were claiming that some of the things, a lot of the things that the complaints were like, firewood everywhere. The yard was just junky and stuff like that. I mean, I would think things like that, like even just getting your little trimmers out and doing something, or if you have firewood scattered everywhere, I would think something like that. That's not a money issue. You can, you can do that.
The trash.
The way we stand right now is that code violations that don't require a significant cost, they got to get it done, period. Clean up your yard, clean up your firewood, that's easy.
Right.
Fix it now.
But it seemed like that resident said, though, that hadn't been, that many of the issues, and you probably know which one it is, John, that many of the issues could be taken care of without really spending any money, just maybe that person getting out there and kind of tidying up their yard.
Right.
So I want to run through the list of items that we are pursuing. Tall grass, exterior storage, derelict vehicles, commercial and recreational vehicles, trash cans, and commercial signs on residential property. So we're still pursuing those. But if somebody's got mold on their house, peeling paint, the landscaping wall is deteriorated, there's temporary on-site commercial signs for local businesses. That's just, we're open now during COVID. In non-COVID days, you couldn't put those up. We're allowing those to be up. Those are the items that we're relaxing.
Yeah. Keep it just like it is, I say.
Can anybody hear me? Because I lost my video.
Yeah, we can see you too.
Well,
Even though you
we could see you.
I got a blank screen.
Huh.
I can barely hear anybody
Yeah, we
now,
can
and my
hear
blank
you.
screen is blank. All right.
I'm good with keeping it the same, Paul.
Okay. So that's what we'll do.
Okay.
All right. That's all that we had on our agenda for the work session.
Can I ask a question? And this is probably for George. In the future, we're talking about economic development, and we don't have a dedicated person. Really, you're too busy. George is too busy anymore, and then he's taking over for you, and he's going to be busier. Lewis is hands full. Shouldn't we think about in the future having somebody in the economic development department who is responsible for retention of businesses and promotion of businesses, a person that could meet with Scott Drecknick and the rest of them from time to time? I'm talking about in the future.
Yes, so I currently do that now. The EDC hosts monthly roundtables. Scott sends the leads to both Paul and I. It's really a tag team effort between Paul, myself, and Lewis. I'm hopeful the person who fills my shoes will have some experience with economic development and can kind of take the reins and continue that.
As we grow, what I'm saying is, as we go in the future, as we grow more and more, maybe we should consider having somebody dedicated for business retention and things. Something to think about.
Yeah.
Great with you, John.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?